Hi, this is Votan, and I'm back. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about listening to one's body and one's maybe intuitive self, higher self, sort of signals that you get or receiving all the time, but often don't really pay attention to them. And of course, I'm speaking about myself. For many years, I didn't really think too much about the signals that I was receiving, and I would say, well, I'm not getting any signals. I'm not very sensitive. I don't really know what other people are talking about. I don't really feel a difference when I eat this food or that food or do this or that. Everything was just pretty much the same, and I believe it was from too much of not really paying attention to myself and just listening to what other people say. For example, doctors or people in the media, basically the mainstream, will say it really doesn't matter what you eat, just follow the guidelines as long as you get your daily values, your protein, calcium, fiber, all that kind of stuff. You're fine. You can pretty much eat what you want. And yet you see a lot of alternative sources of information say, well, that's not true. But the mainstream sources of information and the people who ascribe to them will pretty much say, it's fine, you don't know what you're talking about. So, for example, if your body is giving you acid reflux, or if you're getting headaches, or something is happening, you're getting stomach aches, something in your body is not right, chances are you're probably doing something that your body doesn't like, and that's a clear signal to change it. If you start doing some sports and your knee hurts or your elbow or I don't know, your spine or your neck, something like that is starting to give you problems, most likely you will go get it checked out, looked at. You will try to figure out what's wrong, why it's being aggravated, and you probably won't do that. And yet, most people, when faced with some bodily issue, they will pop a pill. If they have a headache, they'll take Tylenol or Advil or aspirin or something along those lines. If they have a stomach ache, they'll take Pepto-Bismol. If they have a bad cold or something, they'll take Theraflu. If they have acid reflux or something like that, they'll take some antacids. Basically, they're not listening to the signals that their body is giving them. They'll think, oh, I'm just getting older, or it just runs in my family, or I've always had this, or whatever. And they don't try to fix the issue or figure out what's going on. They just mask it. It's like, oh, I take this thing and I feel fine. And so they are flabbergasted when years later, who knows when, sometime later, they come down with some mysterious illness or some worse issue, and they have no idea what it is. And the doctors just say, oh, well, you have this, it's pretty common, you need surgery, or you have to do something drastic. And yet, if they would have listened years earlier to what their body was trying to tell them, they wouldn't be in the mess that they're in. I'm sort of going off on a tangent a little bit, but I guess the main point for me is that people, including myself, are not really listening to the signals that their bodies are giving them. Um, I often, when I was younger, um, maybe high school or just after, I felt like fasting, which means to me is not eating, maybe drinking water or whatever. But I got out of that because I heard a lot of information from other people saying fasting is bad. On that day that you fast, you're not getting your nutrients. Where are you getting all the vitamins from? With the, I guess, the assumption that you need all of that every day and your body doesn't store any of that. Or fasting, that's not the best way to lose weight. As if trying to lose weight is the only reason why somebody would want to fast. I'm not trying to advocate fasting, but I'm just trying to advocate listening to one's bodily signals. And fasting is something that sort of feels like my body wants to do it once in a while. For example, today, I sort of woke up and I kind of felt like, I just need to fast today, and that's not something I regularly do. Although 2 years ago, I fasted once a week for 9 months or so, but then I sort of got out of it. It actually felt good. I find, for me personally, fasting gives me more energy. And there's sort of like a little hump. You kind of get sort of hungry, but then you don't eat or whatever, that goes away. And then you're not hungry anymore, and you have so much more time. And then after a while, you have all this reserve of energy that comes out of nowhere. It's like, whoa, where does this energy come from? For me, I've done that in the past. After a couple days, I fasted for a longer period of time, and after a few days, you get a burst of energy. And I've done heavy sports, intense workouts with fasting, and I felt like I had more energy than when I ate. Most people will say, "Oh, I have to eat right before I work out," or I have to eat before going to work, or I need breakfast, or this or that, and otherwise I have no energy and I have low blood sugar. And I believe them, but I think that they really don't know what their body is capable of, and they haven't tried to give their bodies a break and let them feel what it's like not to eat for a short period of time. But I mean, I'm not trying to change anyone else's opinion. I'm just that's my own observation. As for me, I sort of woke up today and feel like, I wanted to fast. The only thing I had was some freshly pressed apple juice from some organic Fuji apples that I had lying around. And it was so delicious that when I drank it, I felt so alive, and it felt so nourishing. I was like, that's exactly what I needed. And for the rest of the day, I think I'll just have some water. I am going out later to a gathering, but there's not going to be food there, so that's going to be no issue. I think it's good when I'm not in a routine. It's like, okay, I'm going to fast, 1 day a week, every week, or I'm going to do something on this hour every day that doesn't leave any room for listening to the bodily signals. I think it's very important to try to live a little bit more spontaneously. Try to ask your body, or try to discern what the body wants to do, what is in its best interest at any given time, in order to figure out what you should be doing at that time. And I think that leads into becoming more intuitive, listening to your higher self, the super consciousness, whatever you want to call it, because by starting to listen to your body, you're leaving your mind. You're not listening to reason. You're not saying, well, I've always done it that way, or I eat every day, why should I not eat? Or, that's just the routine, that's the way things are done. By getting out of that mindset and trying to take a step back and say, okay, well, what is the best thing for me at this moment? I know I've always done it this other way. I know it's typical for me to do this. I know what the experts say, but what do I feel at this moment? And by trying to take that stance of, okay, I'm going to listen, and just being open to whatever comes, and maybe it's surprising, and maybe nothing comes, and maybe I'll try again later. But I found that trying to be more open and not being so rigid helps me be more conscientious of what my body is trying to tell me, and that will in turn lead to deeper levels of intuition, which is something that I want to cultivate. So that's sort of what I wanted to talk about today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.